Hello everyone, welcome to the new video of Clinical Research Sport. Today I am going to discuss with you about the phases of clinical research. The clinical trial, as you know that, in which we are testing new drugs, already approved drugs, devices, or other forms of treatment. Many of the clinical trial, they are looking at what are the new ways to detect any disease condition, to diagnose or to measure the extent of diseases? And also, they are looking how to prevent a disease from happening or how to prevent a disease from returning. All these things the investigators are testing in clinical trial. Actually, this clinical trial which shows us what works and what does not in medicine and healthcare. Basically, these clinical trials which are designed to answer some important questions like, does the new treatment work in people? If it does, doctors will look at how well it works. If it does not better, is it as good, and is it cause any side effects, or does it works in some people who are not helped by the current treatments? Is the new treatment is safe? Is this treatment better than the standard treatment which is given for the disease condition? So clinical trial which help to show if a new drug or a treatment or a new treatment combination which works better than what is now it's used. So for getting these questions answers, we have to undergo the different phases in clinical research. So it's a lengthy procedure. So what are the steps which is involved in this that we are discussing today? So let's start first that when the clinical trials are conducting, you may hear about the term preclinical studies. The term preclinical study, which will be familiar to you. The clinical trials are usually conducting after the completion of preclinical studies. You may know about that also, that what is preclinical studies. Okay, so what is this preclinical study? This involve testing new drugs and medical devices on animals before human testing to assess the safety and efficacy. These studies, which is also called as laboratory studies. It's a two type of preclinical studies which is involved, that is in vivo studies and in vitro studies. So what is this in vivo studies? That means the research is done on a living organism. Like the researchers, they will use mice, rabbits, guinea pigs, monkeys, like that different animals they will be used for testing these drug. And second type which is in vitro studies, like the research is done in the laboratory, petri dishes, test tubes, like that cell cultures are using for the in vitro studies. Like that in the preclinical trial, in vivo and in vitro which is involved. Once these preclinical studies are completed, then only the researchers they can move into the human study. But always remember that this preclinical study, which is not involved in clinical trial, we are not doing any activities related to that. What are the data which is collected from the preclinical study that we are using? Okay, any clinical research professionals, they are not involved in the preclinical study, that is research and development team, they are doing the preclinical activities. Now let's say that what are the steps which is involved in the clinical trial. Actually, from this procedure, the clinical research professionals' works are starting. That's starting from the IND. There are different steps which is involved in the clinical trial. Each drug, they should undergo these procedures. The result from these phases, it will show that if the new drugs or a treatment which is reasonably safe and effective. So these are the steps which is involved, as you can see, starting with IND, then it's go for the phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, then after that it will go for the NDA submission and marketing of the drug, then last one, phase 4. Now let's see that each of this procedure. What is the first one? It's IND application. What is that IND? What is the full form? It is an investigational new drug application. That is IND, investigational new drug. Actually, this is a request from a clinical trial sponsor to the regulatory authority to obtain the permission to administer the investigational drug or any biological product to humans. So without submission of any IND application, the clinical trial, they cannot start it. So for conducting a clinical trial, sponsor need a permission from regulatory authority. So that application which is known as IND application. So an IND application or a request, it must be submitted or filed with the regulatory authority by the researchers when the researchers want to be conduct a study in humans. So usually it must be contain certain informations in this application, which is result from studies like the preclinical study information that have to be submitted, by which the regulatory authority, they can decide whether this treatment it may be safe in people. So that's why we are conducting the preclinical study also. Like for every product there may be some toxicity. So if it is cause any serious event to the people, then we cannot conduct such studies now. So that's why first they will test in the animals. Then also they have to be submitted the information that how the drug is made, the formulation information, manufacturing information, who makes it, what is the content in that, all this information should be submitted. Then it have to be submitted the detailed outline for the planned clinical study, that is about the clinical trial protocol. Then details about the clinical trial team to see if these persons who are going to be part of this study, they have the knowledge and skills to perform the clinical trial. And also these research sponsors, they must commit to getting the informed consent from everyone on the clinical trial. They must also commit to having the study reviewed by an IRB and following that all the rules and regulations for conducting the clinical trials that will follow for the study. So all these things that should be confirmed by the research sponsor. So after this, we can move to the phases of clinical trial. The clinical trials are usually conducted in phases that build one another. Each phase is designed to answer certain questions. Each of the phase have different importance in the studies. So first we will discuss about phase 0. The phase 0 clinical trial, it is an intermediate phase between the preclinical and phase 1 clinical trial. Phase 0 trials that help the sponsors to improve their preclinical selection process. This study will help the researchers to be find out if the drugs do what they are expected to do. This may help to save the time and money that would have been spent on later phases trial. In this study, a very small number of subjects, that is healthy volunteers, are participating. The number of these subjects that will be usually fewer than 15. To these subjects, a microdose of the drug only providing. The drug will provide only for a short time, that is less than a week. The researchers also will gather the preliminary pharmacokinetic and toxicity in humans before phase 1 study from this phase 0 trial. Once they completed the phase 0 trial, they can move to the next phase, that is phase 1. So why these phase 1 trials are conducting? It is to evaluating the pharmacology and toxicity of the drugs in humans. During the phase 1 of clinical trial, the investigators spent several months looking at the effects of the medication. Approximately 60 to 20 subjects they may participate in the trial. The main aim of this phase 1 study, which is to check the pharmacokinetics effects of the drug, that is to know about the absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion of the drug in the human body. And also this trial, which is collecting the information about the pharmacodynamics. And also this is conducting to find out the highest dose of the treatment that can given safely without causing severe side effects. These studies also help to decide on the best way to give the new treatment. Usually in this trial phase 1, healthy volunteers are participating. But in certain cases, instead of healthy volunteers, patients are also participating, such as cancer and HIV conditions. Because the drug which it can be used for this type of disease condition, it can be cytotoxic. So it may affect the healthy people. They may ill in future. So that's why in such trials, patients are only taking. Once the phase 1 trials are completed, and if it is success, then the researchers will move to the next phase. What is that? That is the phase 2 trial. Now let's see that what is phase 2 clinical trial. This phase 2 study which involving several hundreds of participants who are living with the condition in which new drug investigation is doing. That is, the patients who have that particular condition in which the investigation is doing, that people will participate in the phase 2 clinical trial. So, why these phase 2 trials are required? These studies are mainly conducting to further assessment of the safety of the drug, to assess the effectiveness of the drug, the determination of the dose and dose regimen of the drugs to be used in the later studies, evaluating the different target population and therapeutic regimens of the drug. Usually the researchers they will conduct this study to approximately 1 to 3 years to see the effectiveness of the drug and to get the more information about the side effects. And after the completion of this study, the researchers they will move to the next phase. That is a very lengthy phase in clinical trial. That is phase 3 clinical trial. So in this phase 3 clinical trial, the researchers they will compare the safety and effectiveness of the new treatment against the current standard treatment. That is the treatment which is already available in market to treat that particular condition. So the study drug and the current available treatment comparison that will perform in the phase 3 trial, that is to evaluate how the new medication that works in comparison with the existing medication for the same condition. Is the new product is good comparing to the previous product, that they need to be confirmed. So the phase 3 trial which is used to get the information such as confirmation of therapeutic benefit, monitoring the side effects of the product, the dose response relationship, study in wider range target population, interactions with other drugs, and for the development of the instructions for the use of the product and for the product label. So for these is phase 3 trials are conducting. As I told you, it will be contain lot of number of patients. The wider range of patients are participating. That is approximately 200 to 1000 subjects are participating. And the duration of the study is very lengthy. Approximately 2 to 5 years can be taken to be complete this trial. So that's why the phase 3 trial is the very lengthy study in clinical trial, and the researchers, the sponsors are spending most of the expenses for this phase 3 trials. It's a very expensive trials in clinical trial. So once this phase 3 clinical trial is completed, what is the next procedure? That is NDA, new drug application. What is that new drug? We already discussed that IND, which is permission to be conduct the clinical trial. So like that, if the product want to be market, then also we have to be get the permission, right? So after the phase 3 clinical trial, if it is success, then the researchers they can market the product. So for that now there is an application which they have to be submitted, that is new drug application. So it is a type of application in which a pharmaceutical manufacturer or its agent requests permission from the regulatory authority For a license to market the drug for one or more specified indication in which the study was conducted. So, in this submission, whatever the information or data which is collected from the preclinical studies and the clinical trial that will submit to the regulatory authority by the sponsor, and if they approved, then the sponsor can market the product. So, after the phase 3, after the submission of documents to the regulatory authority, if the regulatory authority approved, sponsor can market the product. Once this marketing is completed, then the sponsor will move to the last phase in clinical trial. What is that? Last phase, phase 4. So this trial is known as post-marketing trial. The post-approval trials that further investigate the therapeutic use of an investigational drug. It will monitor the long-term adverse events of the drug. It will investigate the contraindicate drugs or disease. It will check the drug effectiveness and the drug safety, which is not identified in the previous studies. Usually, hundreds of people, like the subjects, patients, will participate in the trial, and it will be approximately 1 to 3 years the trials can be conducted. So, that's about the phases of the trial. In the phase 0 and 1, healthy volunteers and participating, and from the phase 2 to phase 4, only patients are participating. All these phases now, which are designed to learn if the new treatment is more effective or it has the less harmful side effect than the existing treatments. So to confirm these things, all the clinical trial phases which we are conducting. I hope you understood about this topic. If you like this session, please like, subscribe and share to your friends. We will see soon with the another interesting topic. Thank you.